The 49ers just got a mountain of good news, a bunch of positive things out there I did not see coming today. In this video, I've got a bunch of feel-good updates that I think is going to send you off into the tail end of your work week. Hit subscribe if you're looking for daily 49ers content. I'm on a journey to 10,000, and I am going to do a subscriber giveaway when we hit 10K, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Appreciate it. Genuinely does help me out. We got like 4 or 5 different reports here, so let's just run through them, starting with the first one being Brock Purdy, the quarterback. Brock Purdy is actively negotiating a new contract with the 49ers, although there is no rush, quote, to get a deal done despite a desire to secure a contract prior to the start of the 2025 NFL season. That's according to Jordan Schultz, who is reporting this. Now, Jordan Schultz is not a nobody reporter. I know you might not like everything he has to say. That's okay. But the bottom line is that's a solid report coming from him. It's not as big as Ian Rappaport, but it's pretty far up there. So that's a huge one. Also in that report there being multiple sources insisting that Brock Purdy could land anywhere from 50 to 55 million per year in his new agreement. So there you go. Jordan Schultz is reporting that the 49ers actually have a window now. Like that's the supposed window according to Jordan Schultz, and I think it's different than what we've seen in previous reports. On one hand, we learned nothing. But on the other hand, I feel really good about it. And here's why. And I know you might be scoffing at me when you're like, you just said we learned nothing. We actually did learn something, okay? So I'm saying that a little bit in jest, okay? But here's the first part, okay? The first part is when these negotiations are going on, this is like a little bit of a sign of life. And we've seen a lot of these signs of life, quote unquote, coming out both from the 49ers themselves and also from the top of the media. And I think that is really helpful for comparing and contrasting previous contracts that took a long time to get done, right? Like the Brandon Aiyuk one. There would just go seemingly months. It felt like months between any new information coming out. And it feels like with the 49ers, they have really been on this from the very beginning. There has been active negotiations, and I'm happy to hear it's still an active negotiation. I'm happy to hear there's still a lot of back and forth going on. I'm also happy to hear, and maybe this is wrong, but it sure seems a lot more solid to me than all of the folks for the last several months who were like, I think it'll be somewhere around this one. I think it'll be around this. And there was a lot of back and forth. This feels a little more solid of that range of 50 to 55 million, which if you account for the salary cap increase, 50 to 55 feels a lot more like 45 to 50 to me, and that feels really good to me. That feels really good when you account for that. But we got to move on because we got a bunch of other stories to get to. I'm just happy to see that the contract negotiations are still going, and I'm stoked to see that the window that number is falling in is where I think it should be. Let me know in the comments if you disagree, of course, but also this one was another one. It didn't totally catch me by surprise because Vegas said basically the same kind of thing. But the 49ers over-under wins for 2025 was just released at 10.5. Now, I get it. It's a 17-game season, and so my brain still has to be retaught that 11 wins isn't what it used to be. I get that, but for the 49ers to have gone through everything that they've gone through up to this point, for all of the players that are outgoing and for none of those positions to have been filled, basically, and for the draft haven't happened yet. Is that even English? However that came out. The 49ers are still picked by ESPN to be a 10.5 win season, meaning the over-under. So you either bet over that they're going to be at 11 wins or more, or you bet under that they're at 10 wins or less, right? Because obviously you're not going to be on a half win. So this is crazy, though. Think about this for a second, okay? I genuinely believe this, okay? For 2 reasons. Obviously, the schedule. We got to get that out of the way because obviously the number one factor in the 49ers' best chances of hitting 11 wins on this over-under is because of their schedule. The strength of schedule from last year to this year. Last year, if you remember, when you put all the records next to the teams, the 49ers had the toughest schedule in the NFL, bar none, okay? That's like number one of 32, okay? But when you look at this year, based on last year's records, the 49ers are 32 out of 32. So the 49ers have flipped and gone from the best or the hardest schedule to the best possible schedule. And obviously we'll see how things play out, which teams improve and which teams are better than teams from last year. That stuff, that's going to happen. And it's not going to be as cut and dry. Just like last year, our strength of schedule was middle tier. And then we ended, or like maybe top of the middle, but it was still middle. And it ended up being the hardest schedule by record at least. Okay. So the 49ers, according to ESPN Bet, picked to be at 10.5. The line is set at 10.5. That is crazy. That is awesome. That means that 11 wins or 12 wins is not crazy out of reach according to their metrics. And they care because they're allowing you to put money on that line. And if you disagree with that and you think this is crazy, I'll take a who was it? Atkinson on Twitter. I showed his post the other day. He was the one who's like, hey, if you disagree, then by all means, go put money down. All right. You don't agree with it. Great. You're going to make a lot of money if the 49ers don't win the NFC West. Okay. Moving on to the next one. George Kittle, according to PFF, is poised to reset the tight end market. This could be seen as a bad thing, I suppose, if you're like, oh no, the 49ers are going to pay some insane amount of money. He's already toward the top. He's just going to move up to the top. That's the expectation from PFF. And I'm going to tell you this is good news because I want George Kittle to retire a Niner. I don't ever want to see him play in another team's colors for the rest of his career. I can see him in black in Iowa, and I can see him in red and gold as a 49er, and I don't want to see anything else for the rest of his career. Okay, you can go with Pro Bowl colors if you want there, but whatever. Okay, that's all I want to see. Actually an article by David Bonilla, that's who it was, and it was 49ers Web Zone. Covered this, saying this: Kittle is set to count $22 million against the salary cap in 2025, making him the second highest cap hit on the team, behind only linebacker Fred Warner at $29.2 million. However, the 49ers could reduce Kittle's financial impact with a contract extension, pushing some of that money down the road. I'm hoping they're going to do that for Warner too, by the way. And then PFF, this is what they said. Even at 31, Kittle remains arguably the NFL's best tight end. He paced qualified tight ends in both PFF overall grade at 92.1 and PFF receiving grade 92.4, while dropping a minuscule 2 passes and securing 70.6% of contested catches in 2024. Now, with 7 straight seasons on an 84.7 plus PFF overall grade under his belt, Kittle has just 1 year left on his contract and is poised to surpass Travis Kelce's $17.125 million average annual value. And I'm going to talk to the naysayers in a second here, but we got one more here. Just a quick reminder, as I'm sure you already know, Kittle surpassed 1,000 receiving yards for the 4th time in his NFL career, catching 78 passes for all-team leading 1,106 yards and 8 touchdowns. Over the past 3 seasons, he has scored 25 touchdowns. Okay? So there you go. And to the naysayers out there who are like, George Kittle's aging, let him play out the last year of his contract. If he has a bad year, offer him or whatever. Like, I get that there's a world in which you might do that. The problem is, even if Kittle has a bad year, even if Kittle, is injured for part of the year, knock on wood, don't worry, I have a wood table right here. The reality is George Kittle demands a good contract because of what he's done up to this point. And one down year, Deebo Samuel, for example, one down year is not going to stop another team out there. There will be teams out there willing to pay him big money. I want to lock him down because if he doesn't get this contract now, he will get a big contract next season. Maybe it won't be as big as he could get now, but he will get a big contract, and I want him to be a 49er. That's what I'm hoping for. We know, of course, from John Lynch himself that the 49ers are in these negotiations with him. We know from George Kittle himself that the 49ers are in this negotiation. Both parties, George Kittle and John Lynch and company, everybody wants Kittle to finish out his career as a Niner. Okay? Everybody wants that to happen. We all want him to be a Niner for life. So there you go. I'm hyped on it. Okay? That's just my personal opinion. Found this interesting article by Matt Maiocco on Kelvin Banks out of Texas. This is fascinating. Why Texas tackle Banks might be 49ers' best first-round offensive line bet. And this is for all of you because you're out there and I see you in the comments and I appreciate you for commenting. I love reading your guys' comments. when we talked, like, I think it was yesterday, maybe we talked about the defensive line a bunch, right? Maybe it was 2 days ago. I can't remember. And when we talked about the defensive line, we're thinking about, like, I'm telling you, like, defensive tackle versus edge, right? And I'm not even talking about the offensive line, because in my mind, you're only going to get that top edge talent in the first round. You can go and get other guys, which is why they're setting up those meetings. But Matt Maiocco over here is presenting a case. I'm not saying he believes this, but it's definitely presenting what the argument would be for this reality. Matt Maiocco is presenting a case that Kelvin Banks might be the guy to go for the San Francisco 49ers in the first round at pick 11. You're not going to find him later than pick 11. If he makes it to pick 11, should the 49ers get him? Do you want the 49ers picking up an offensive tackle? Now, the unique proposition, of course, if Kelvin Banks is as good as we think he is, the unique proposition is the 49ers have a right tackle in Colton McKivitz, who's probably not getting a deal done this year, and he's on the last year of his contract. So Colton McKivitz is bye-bye. He's gone. Okay? You have also Trent Williams, who after this year is over, is about to make, I think it hits the cap like $38 million or something crazy like that. I don't have the exact number. Don't quote me on that. But Trent Williams has a big money hit to the cap at the end of this season, which means either the 49ers are going to restructure him, the 49ers are going to take that hit next year because he's that valuable, or he's gone. He's going to retire, or the 49ers are going to cut him and he's going to go somewhere else, or something is going to happen. I would venture to guess he's going to retire. He's got this year in him. He's said that a bunch. He's not going anywhere. If I'm a betting man, especially if this is a good season for the 49ers like I think it's going to be, he's probably going to sail off into the sunset, hopefully with the 6th Lombardi in his hand. We'll have to wait and see, but let's talk about what Matt Maiocco had to say first. Banks won the Outland Trophy and Lombardi Award as the nation's best offensive lineman, and it is clear that he believes that he would be a good fit for the 49ers. Banks had a formal meeting with the 49ers at the NFL Scouting Combine. There's a possibility the 49ers could target him with the number 11 pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, which, just to back up Matt Maiocco here, of course there's a possibility the 49ers make a move on Banks because they had a formal meeting with him. Now, don't get me wrong, the 49ers will meet with a lot of guys that they will not. They've already met with a bunch of guys that they're not going to draft. Just by nature. They've met with too many guys, they don't have many draft picks, right? But because they went out of their way to meet with guys like Banks, who is 100% not going to make it out of the first round, at least as things are right now. Something could change, but there is no reason right now that Kelvin Banks falls out of the first top 15, maybe top 20, if something crazy would happen. I don't see that happening. I think the 49ers will potentially have a shot at him. We'll talk about the odds on that in a second. But if they're having a meeting with a guy like this, similar to an Amand Membo, right? Like if you're meeting with these guys, it's because you're at least considering that these guys might be guys you want around your organization, right? So there's a chance, okay? That's the point. Okay, moving on to the next piece, and then we're going to talk about odds too in a second. 49ers' one and only chance of landing a guaranteed starting offensive tackle will come in the first round of the draft. That, by the way, that's backed up by a lot of scouting reports talking about how there's good talent out there, but there's no great tackle talent that's expected to fall past the first round. Even though the 49ers have a nice pick in the second round, there's a good shot that the 49ers' only chance at getting a starting tackle player, okay, just as a player. I'm not saying we're going to put him in as a starting tackle, but the only chance they're going to draft that player, that position, is going to happen in the first round. I agree with him on that. I already talked about Trent Williams' potential retirement. McKivitz here. Banks' size, 6'5", 315, and athleticism give him a good chance at success in the 49ers outside zone running scheme. Plus, add on top of that, by the way, he is one of those dudes that, if you play that idea, which many people do, of draft a tackle and for the next year give him experience at a guard position, and he pushes for that left guard position over a Ben Barch sort of scenario or a Spencer Burford sort of scenario, that could work out really well for the 49ers, who get a guy who has a year to get some experience before taking over for Trent stinking Williams, right? Now, the chances of him being available, And we'll talk about the other offensive linemen who would compare, or offensive tackles, I should say, who will compare in a second. But the chance of Kelvin Banks being available at pick 11 for the San Francisco 49ers is currently at 80%. Okay? That's 80% based on a bunch of mock drafts. Okay? Now, Will Campbell is kind of most people saying the number one tackle in the in the draft this year. And then, of course, Armand Membu, like my favorite 40-yard dash of all time forever. Like no one will ever top that with the primal screams. It was just absolutely epic. If you haven't watched it, you need to go watch it. And then you've got and then you got Kelvin Banks. And those are your offensive tackles for the first round, and those are those are the talents right there. There you have them. Let me know what you think in the comments about that one. But here's basically his last and final point. Banks finished last season as PFF's top-rated offensive tackle in the country. He had 1 sack. He allowed 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 7 pressures in 538 pass blocking snaps. Not too snazzy. He is nimble to adjust and pick off defenders at the second level and on the perimeter. NFL Network draft analyst Daniel Jeremiah wrote on Banks. I have some negative thoughts around some of Daniel Jeremiah's opinions, but in general, he's well respected. Some teams see him as more of a guard, but I believe he can hold up at tackle. Overall, Banks has some things to clean up, but I like his core foundation of strength and agility. So there you go. And let's not act like the 49ers don't love a little bit of a project. So if there's a thought that he's a project, boom, 49ers are going to draft him. It's going to happen just like that. I'm just messing. Let me know what you think in the comments about all that. Of course, we are now 29 days. We are under 30. It's so good to feel we're in the 20s now. And I don't know about you, but I almost want to stop going to this slide because every time I go to it, it just makes me feel like, just one more day. We're just grinding away. I need the draft to come soon so that I can start to feel like I understand what the 49ers are doing and start to feel like I understand exactly how they're going about all of these positions that need to be filled. I can't wait to have answers to those questions. And I'll be giving those answers on this channel. So hit subscribe so you don't miss out on all that. Appreciate you guys and hope that you have a fantastic Wednesday evening or Thursday or whenever the heck you're watching this into a fantastic weekend.